Hi, this is Ren.
This is Casey.
This is All Walks of Film. And we gotta say,
It is whitewashing and it is blatantly racist. And those are kind of two separate things in the movie, but it's both of them. And it's pretty fucking embarrassing.
so leave your comments below without watching the video.
Ding! Thanks for listening, guys. Bye-bye.
Alright, so one of the things that we tried to do in our last review is to talk about the movie.
And failed.
Yeah, but we tried to talk about the movie on its own merits.
And now it's time to get into this because A, it's impossible to talk about this movie without talking about, is it whitewashing, is it not whitewashing, is it controversial, did it play into the box office? I'm sorry, that's my hamster. He's eating. He's a very loud eater. Also, it's a little embarrassing to see how many people are using this argument of it's not whitewashing because Motoko Kusanagi has no ethnicity, therefore she's supposed to be white. As if, and here's the thing, even before we get into like the actual racist aspects and this whole whitewashing thing, first of all, white is a fucking ethnicity. There's no way to get around that. That is an ethnicity. White is not a default. Not in America, but especially not in fucking Japan. So this whole idea of like, oh, well, of course she's white because she has no ethnicity. Fuck you, that is some bullshit. And number two, you're right, she has no ethnicity in her original context because she's a cartoon. Now, pay very close attention. There is a difference between the way cartoons are portrayed and the way real-life human beings are portrayed. This whole argument that, to my understanding of the film, no, Kusanagi she's Japanese. And we'll get into why and how and all that stuff later, but if your only argument is, well, she has pale skin and blue eyes, therefore she's supposed to be white, and that's all there is to it. I want to ask you this. If you're making a live-action Simpsons movie, are you going to cast an all-Asian family? Are you going to demand that Marge has to be an Asian woman with a naturally blue afro that's 4 feet tall? No, that's fucking ridiculous. They're white. But no, they have yellow skin. They're clearly Asian. Clearly, everybody in Springfield is Asian. Almost, I know.
But they have the Asian doctor, so what do you mean? Like, no, see, clearly there's a difference.
Oh, well, clearly, in Ghost in the Shell, there are white people, American people, and Caucasian robots who don't look or act anything like Motoko Kusanagi.
Well, and then there's a French-Romanian guy in the movie, but I'll get into that later.
Yeah, but anyway, this whole thing of like, oh, just because she has pale skin, that automatically means she must be white, or, oh, because she has no ethnicity, she must be white, is all bullshit. Because here's the thing, once you take a cartoon character and you translate that into a real-life person, you are casting a person who has an ethnicity, because every single human being in real life has an ethnicity, unless you literally make a CGI character who would probably end up looking something like Alan Tudyk in iRobot, then your character is going to have an ethnicity. You can't just say, oh, she's white, therefore there's no ethnicity problem. That's bullshit. But second, and most important, Motoko Kusanagi is one character. You can argue back and forth and all day long, is she white, is she not white, is she Japanese, doesn't matter. She's a robot, it doesn't matter. Let's just say for argument's sake, it doesn't matter. She's a robot, it literally doesn't matter. Her backstory is not contrived bullshit, it all makes sense, and it's all perfectly valid. There's still a much bigger problem in this movie, and that is that there is not a single sympathetic character with a positive attribute who is Japanese in the entire film. Not only is most of the film not Japanese, most of the cast is not Japanese. There are literally only 2 Japanese people in Section 9. And to be fair, there are people in Ghost in the Shell who are not Japanese. Bato is not Japanese. Miss Haraway, who goes by a different name in the movie, is not Japanese. I'm not saying everybody has to be Japanese. But also, your movie that takes place in Japan shouldn't maybe have more than 6 Japanese people who speak at all in your whole fucking movie. 6 people in the entire movie are Japanese and actually speak. And one of them's played by a Chinese actor, but honestly, that's a whole different point. On top of that, there's also the fact that besides Beat Takashi and Kaori Momoi, every single Japanese person is either a Yakuza gangster, a prostitute, a bodyguard who gets murdered, a robot, or some sort of set decoration. That is literally all you can possibly aspire to be if you were a Japanese person in Japan in this universe. That is bullshit. That is so fucking garbage. Not only that, this movie is so whitewashed from top to bottom that even the garbage man, who has his memory erased, and his buddy, because we have to empathize with them, they're sympathetic characters, they cannot be played by Japanese people, or Asian people in general. Has to be white. Even though that makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, and those weren't even known actors.
They weren't known actors, they weren't bringing anything to the property, it didn't make sense in terms of the story. It was literally just, we cannot have a relatable character who is Japanese in this entire fucking film. It's such bullshit, and what really, 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 really pisses me off is the way that they treated Togusa. Because Togusa is the third most important person in the franchise, and I like Togusa a lot. I know a lot of people don't really care. I like him a lot. I was really sad to see how he was mistreated, because he was. If you only know 2 fucking things about Togusa, you know that he is a human being, not a cyborg, not an android. He doesn't have cybernetic enhancements. He is a human being, and he is a family man with a wife and a daughter who he fucking loves. And this movie erased both of those qualities by having him have one trait, that is that he got a cybernetic enhancement to be able to drink all night, because Japanese men love drinking so much. We had to fit that stereotype in somewhere. He is so fucking sidelined that Ladria, and by the way, I know everybody's gonna be like, who? Which is exactly my point. Ladria, who is barely even a person on the TV show, has significantly more screen time, lines of dialogue, and actual action that participates in the plot than Togusa ever does. Gabriel, the fucking dog, has an entire backstory written about him, but nothing about Togusa. The third most important... In Innocence, which this movie quotes all the time, he is the secondary character. He has more screen time than Motoko Kusanagi, and he has to be sidelined because he's Japanese. Chinese.
Japanese character played by a Chinese actor.
Yeah. But this is what I mean when I'm saying this is blatantly racist. This is hurtful, and yeah, this is pretty bullshit, because you can argue all day long about Motoko Kusanagi, but this other shit, the entire rest of the movie besides Scarlett Johansson, this is fucking embarrassing. We're still making this content and trying to defend it.
To argue for the business of the film...
Okay.
This was produced by 2 Chinese film companies.
Mm-hmm. And there are definitely political tensions involved between the relationship between America and Japan, and also Japan and China, and also China and America. And
we also try to, if we're not making movies for the United States, we're making them for China.
Which is why there's a Smurfs too. No, I understand that there are definitely political tensions, and that's not something you could just mow on over just to appeal to a supposedly niche audience. And I say supposedly because not a single movie that has been accused of whitewashing, whether it's true or not, has been financially successful in probably the past 5 years. This isn't a thing of oh, but they're all bad, which, there is something to be said for the fact that generally the movies that decide that whitewashing is a good idea tend to be bad movies. But even good movies that are accused of it, whether it's true or not, and I'm not saying that it's not true, I'm just saying, such as Silence, which was accused a shit ton of being not only a whitewash movie, but also a white savior movie, which, no, it's not, but it was accused of that, and I don't blame people for accusing it of that.
And
considering
that's
the
an
movies
interesting
that are
movie
out.
Because it actually criticizes the notion of the white savior.
Exactly. It is not a white savior movie, but I get why people thought that. And then Kubo, which is a fucking amazing movie. So is Silence. They're brilliant movies. They're artistic, they're thoughtful, blah, blah, blah. But they were both accused of whitewashing, and guess what? They both did not do financially well. And that's not to say that whitewashing I'm not saying it's not going to mean that it automatically tanks, but that means that it sure as fuck is not helping. It's definitely not helping your fucking movie. When the highest paid actress of 2016 running around practically naked and engaging in lesbianism
even though it didn't happen in the movie.
Even though it didn't happen in the movie, but when a practically naked Scarlett Johansson is macking on another girl in your trailer, and that literally cannot sell tickets for your movies, you really need to think about why that was. And the studio said that the whitewashing was a big deal, but then it came down to the whole thing of, well, it's the fanboys, fuck the fanboys, whatever.
Well, here's the thing.
Who the fuck are you making it for then?
That's also another thing. Like, who the fuck would know who Motoko Kusanagi is outside of the fans? Like, and I get that you change the name, literally using the initials as an excuse to, like, change the names, which, like, you could have thought of because, like, Motoko means child. You could have thought of, like, some alternative word to, like, kind of evoke that. You could have translated the name to make it make more sense. Like, if you are doing a translation,
I
think
they were trying to, but instead it ended up sounding like Showgirls.
What do you mean?
Know me, I'm alone. Know me, I'm alone. Mira Killian. Mirror Killer. That's the second time I've compared this movie to Showgirls. I don't know why there are more similarities between Ghost in the Shell and Showgirls than Ghost in the Shell and Ghost in the Shell.
And I've seen a lot of people argue, spoiler alert for Get Out, that this movie could have addressed its racial body swapping like Get Out and, like, made it a point of the film.
Yeah, I've seen people say, like, oh, so Honka just immediately assumes that the best robotics are also white robotics, but that literally does not play. Like, if that was part of the movie, I would have given it props. I would have said I was wrong.
And there is a little bit of context in the casting, because the person who leads Honka is actually played by an Irish actor, which I didn't notice before. So that's really searching for the Mira Killian thing, because Killian's an Irish name.
No, you're right. I see it.
So I can see that actually.
But he's not related to her.
Right, but he owns the property, so he can name her whatever the fuck he wants. So I could see that being part of the plotline if you want to do that. But there are many ways that this movie could have made race bending interesting, or, you know, not done it at all and talked about, like, identity and all that kind of stuff. But, like, you would essentially have to strip the story more than what it is. Obviously, the anime fans are going to be upset with that, because once you change it too much, then they're going to be like, well, it doesn't look anything like the anime. Well, guess what? It probably would have been a better movie if it was less like the anime and was more of its own thing. Can't say that for sure, because, like, the movie was kind of boring as is.
But considering the fact that I'm pretty sure, I mean, this is speculation. I'm putting my speculator card out there, but considering the fact that this whole fucking Mira Killian, oh, she's a Japanese woman's brain inside a white woman's body, was the plan B after they saw how upset people were getting? That was their attempt to fix it, to make it work? And it was still that bad? I'm going to say that there's no way they could really fix it. I'm going to say that there was a problem with their entire line of thinking, including the fact that there was literally no line of thinking outside of the fact that this movie had to have a white female star. Because before it was Scarlett Johansson, it was going to be Margot Robbie. As far as I know, there has been no possible thought line into it being into Motoko Kusanagi being played by anyone other than a white woman.
And I want to get onto this point that some people have argued in the comments section, that, you know, Motoko Kusanagi was always white. Okay, first of all, if she was always white, you wouldn't have given her a distinctly Japanese name.
Right, and can I do a quick breakdown? Here's what, to me and my feelings, my fifis, why I think that Motoko Kusanagi has to be Japanese. Specifically, she was designed to be as inconspicuous as possible in Japan, so it would make sense that she looks Japanese. But if you look at the 1995 movie, Bato, who is not Japanese and does not look Japanese at all, when he is in public, how do people respond to him? There's a scene in the marketplace where he's walking around. People are avoiding him. People are getting out of their way. People are staring at him because he looks different. He's the other. He's so much taller than everybody. People are freaked out by his eyes. People are freaked out by his stature. Nobody wants to talk to him, and everyone's kind of intimidated and kind of curious. He is the outsider because of his eyes and also because of his ethnicity.
Which is French and Romanian. I looked up the definition. Yeah. Like, it could be one or the other, and yes, Bato does actually have Japanese roots as well, but based on his portrayal and the fact that Mamoru Oshii did direct a movie called Avalon, granted, it was after the fact, that was played by Romanian actors, I would believe that Bato is Romanian.
He's at least Central European. At least, like, let's say. But that's the way that, in the context of Ghost in the Shell, in this supposedly, not really, post-racial society of Japan, it's bullshit, but that's how they interact with the gaijin. Motoko goes out into society, and what happens? She blends in. Nobody notices her. Nobody looks at her. And when she looks at other people in Japan, she sees a reflection of herself in other people around her. That shows to me that it's possible, her model is so commonplace that she's not looking at other human beings in Japan, she's looking at other models of herself. Like other robots that are her same model in Japan. But either way, she is an assimilated part of the society.
It's unclear in the original animated film whether that is an existential scene or whether it's meant to be taken more literal.
Right. I took it to be an existential scene, especially considering a lot of the philosophical undertones. But even without that, like I said, look at the way that people react around her. She blends in. It's not like she really, looks at normal, but everybody accepts her immediately. There's nothing to stare at, there's nothing to gawk at, there's no reason to stay away from her. She just fits right in.
And the one thing that I could say that could be an argument that people could make is, well, what Japanese person has blue eyes? She's an android. First of all, eyes are really easy to change colors to.
Right, exactly.
Especially with androids. And if you watch the Ghost in the Shell 2...
I was going to bring that up, yeah.
The eyes glow, so...
Well, they also have text in them. They're clearly, a cybernetic enhancement.
Like with Bato, but a little bit more advanced.
Right, exactly. A little bit more blend-inable. 2, Scarlett Johansson doesn't even fucking have blue eyes. Scarlett Johansson literally does not have the only trait that people are pointing to and saying, look, she has to be white. Scarlett Johansson has green eyes. That are kind of hazel green, something like that. They're that kind of in-between green-brown.
Yeah, and you would think if you're really trying to capture this aesthetic, you would bring up the eye color. Because you can easily do that.
They did that in Lucy! I'm sorry, it's impossible to not compare Ghost in the Shell to Lucy.
Because, the casting of both Bato and Scarlett Johansson were
the same, and it was a similar premise, yeah.
Pilar Speck, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then also, here's the other thing. This whole thing of she has pale skin and she has blue eyes. There is a screenshot that I've saved that we're going to add to the video that specifically shows Motoko Kusanagi next to the Caucasian robot model. And guess what? They do not have the same skin tone. They do not have the same eye color. They do not have the same hair color. They don't look anything fucking alike. And one of them is white, and one of them is not white.
Yeah, and it's a subtle difference, but Asian people and Caucasian people have different white complexions. The pigment of their skin, Asians, it's a little bit more milky.
Well,
and with white people, there's a lot more red and other stuff kind of mixed in.
And here's the other thing. When it comes to cosmetics, the trend in Japanese cosmetics for at least the past 100 years has been paler, white makeup. Is it that surprising that a robot would have paler skin? I'm not saying that's right, or that's cool, or that that's the way it should be. I'm just saying,
well, China's been doing that for a long time, too.
I know, a lot of places have been doing that for a long time. But that's exactly my point. It's not so out of the realm of belief that you could have a pale skin, Japanese, cybernetic body. And I hate that we're delving into this much detail, trying to pick it apart and talk about, like, the difference between pigment and skin color. But part of the reason why this has to come up and it has to be addressed is because there is such a ridiculous outcry against the notion that, you know what if we had a film that was adapted from a property in Japan, that takes place in Japan, that starred someone who was of Japanese descent? Oh my god, no. It has to be a white woman. And it makes perfect sense, and they explain it in the movie, and it's not whitewashing, you guys, and ethnicity is not that important, and it's so stupid and blah, blah, blah. What is so wrong with the basic idea of what if we had a movie where the main character wasn't white?
Also, one of the arguments that I see made on the other side is, well, Japan does this as well.
That doesn't make it right.
Exactly. Japan is their own country.
It is worth addressing, though, that, yeah, there's a lot of racism on both sides of the ocean. I mean, right now, South Korea is dealing with some American blowback from their second incidents with blackface this year. That doesn't make it okay for us to do that. Like, come on. It doesn't make it okay for them to do it either, I'm just saying. And also, this whole thing of like, oh, well, why aren't you complaining when Japan does it? Well, yeah, I do complain when Japan does it. Like this.
We had to change the color of the skin of Mr. Popo.
Well, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I originally watched Dragon Ball Z, and the skin color wasn't changed, but I do know that they made his skin color purple.
Blue.
Like,
oh, was it purple? I thought it was. I don't know.
I can't remember.
But a lot of comparison has been like, oh, well, like the Full Metal Alchemist movie. I have a big problem with the Full Metal Alchemist movie too, because yes, it's not technically Europe, but it kind of is. But more importantly, if it was like Attack on Titan, where it's like it's kind of based off of these different ethnicities, you know, well, ethnicity doesn't really play that much of a role in Attack on Titan. It mostly just affects their character designs, but it doesn't really affect the politics of the show. It doesn't affect the characters. In Full Metal Alchemist, race and religion is a huge component of the story, of the politics, of the characters, and making them Japan-washed. I don't like that phrase, but okay. Yeah, that's pretty fucking bad. I'm not okay with that either, especially because of how intelligent and insightful Full Metal Alchemist was, especially in dealing, and because of our current political climate, dealing with Islam and, like, the religion of Islam and Muslim culture. It really upsets me that in our live-action adaptation, we're not gonna get to see that. That's not gonna play a part. And it does also bother me that Edward Elric looks like garbage. That is literally the worst cosplay of Edward Elric I think I have ever seen. That doesn't help. But no, just because they're doing it doesn't automatically mean it's okay. It's not okay when they do it either, just because they're Japanese.
Yeah, and, well, it is to be expected, which I think is what Oshii was getting with.
Yeah, he wasn't saying like, oh, it's great. He was just saying like, well, yeah, this is what you guys do.
But I could see him saying that, okay, if you strip down the Japanese nature of the story and just had it as, you know, this existential film of a character trapped in a robot's body, cyborg, whatever you want to call it, essentially RoboCop. You know, if you're kind of doing a female RoboCop, because let's face it, this is kind of what this movie feels like. It feels like the reboot of RoboCop. Mm-hmm. More than it feels like Ghost in the Shell, because like this movie doesn't want to take time to like explore some of the existential things. It doesn't want to take time to breathe, and
the director specifically said he wasn't interested in that.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate because I really wanted to see like cityscapes.
Something that we haven't been seeing for the past 25 years?
Yeah, because one of the things that in both Ghost in the Shell films that is a significant part is taking a breath to just look at the city.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just the movie stops and you just enjoy the scenery.
Mm-hmm.
This movie could have done that. I honestly would have liked to see that because I was really enjoying the production design of this movie, which is something that I can't say for the script. And they got the writer from Straight Outta Compton to like come in and rewrite the script. I mean, what was wrong with the script? I mean, like, we didn't get that great of a movie even after it got rewrites. What was going on? They spent 3 years writing a script. When
and
fucking
it's still whitewashing and racist bullshit aside, still sucked ass.
Yeah, and what I was saying earlier about like you can strip it from everything and possibly make an argument for an adaptation in the United States. Let's face it, in the United States, only 5% of the population is Asian. That's a very small percentage of the United States. I get that you could make the argument that that doesn't really reflect the United States. So, you know, but if you were going to make Ghost in the Shell in the United States, you would have to change many different aspects of it. And you would have to change this whole nature. You wouldn't call her Motoko Kusanagi. And I would say that you might want to strip a lot of its plot lines, strip a lot of the stuff, and just get down to the core of things. Ghost in the Shell was made right before the start of the internet being opened to the public. So there was still speculation. I could see Ghost in the Shell expanding to be about this sort of hive mind that the internet has become. You know, not only with like an AI, you know, the puppet master, but, you know, with individuals connecting with each other outside of this neural network of things. Like, there are interesting concepts to be addressed with this subject of being absent from your body and such. You could have taken the Deus Ex video games and drawn some inspiration from that. Granted, once the Deus Ex movie comes out, which is probably inevitable, though given the success of this movie, don't know, you could have drawn some of that inspiration, because let's face it, there was a lot of RoboCop in that as well, and got into some of the stuff about how having cybernetic parts might not always be compatible with somebody's body, which means that there are problems that happen, and there's a separation of classes, and there's a lot of really interesting stuff that Deus Ex presents. You could incorporate that into the story. So there are many ways to adapt this without just simply saying that it has to be a Japanese story and it has to be accepted. However, if you're going to do an adaptation of a Japanese property and keep a lot of its elements, because let's face it, you were marketing this to people who didn't see the anime. So why try to appeal to the anime fans when you're not going to fully do it, when you're not going to commit to it, and you're going to try to condense 5 properties together: the Ghost in the Shell manga, the Ghost in the Shell movies, standalone complex, and Arise. You might want
to incorporate more than just cheap Orientalism into your movie.
Yeah, like actually have your writers watch the material, and more than just what it looked like.
Apparently only the production designers watched any of the original source material.
Yeah, because their shit was spot on.
Mm-hmm.
And actually interesting. They, like, the whole, like, spider legs thing that the geishas did, that wasn't in the original property.
And there were some really good Uncanny Valley effects going on in there that was reminiscent of the original property, but not a copy and paste.
Yeah. They almost single-handedly saved the movie from complete disaster.
That's pretty much the only reason why anybody saw the movie, was because the production design was good enough to attract that many ticket sales, which is pretty bad.
And let's face it, Scarlett Johansson isn't that big of a draw. Getting on to other characters. Kuze. Why the hell is Kuze played by Michael Pitt? Is Michael Pitt a bankable name?
No, but also the Media Action Network for Asian Americans had a couple people who rightly pointed out how including Kuze and their Japanese, like, their Japanese brains and white bodies and all this shit, was such bullshit. And they pointed out that the fact that we don't even get to see them in their Japanese bodies makes it further of, like, even more of a whitewash, but then also just more ridiculous. And they talk about, like, this whole thing of there's not enough Asian American names to open a blockbuster film, but they're not willing to put actors in third billing in these pictures behind people like Michael Pitt. And who's the other guy? I know I can't ever remember his name. The guy who plays Bato.
Pilau Aspect.
Yeah, like, is he drawing people?
He was in Game of Thrones, but, like, he just appeared last season.
Yeah, nobody was going to see the Game of Thrones guy in Ghost in the Shell.
And also, to be fair,
he's not racially
he fits the part.
No, he fits the part. I'm not saying anything against his casting. He actually did a really good job with the character. Casting-wise, like, he actually fit the role. He was literally the only thing I could stand even a little bit besides the Beat Takashi action scene. But my point is that he still is getting better billing, more screen time than literally all the Japanese characters put together. And the Garbage Man one really does show a major problem with the movie, because we can talk about Motoko, and you need to have one bankable star, and you can surround her with whatever cast, but there is literally no reason in the world to make both of the Garbage Men white.
Yeah, I mean, you could have even made, my god, you could have even made the one that didn't talk as much Asian. Like, yeah,
that's the thing, is, like, both of them were white. Why?
Yeah, which, you know, getting onto your thing, like, you know, you can't, everybody has to be either part of the sex industry or part of the crime industry, which many times is incorporated with each other.
Mm-hmm. But even the only prostitute who speaks is not Japanese. The only bankable Japanese star that you had in your movie was hidden behind special effects, and nobody knew that she was even in it.
Okay, so I've heard the argument about racial ambiguity. You don't hire an actress that is as white as Scarlett Johansson to represent racial ambiguity. If you want to represent...
Wait, Scarlett this isn't right. But there is a line of thought that I strongly disagree with, that, she was she was in Lost in Translation, and she was in Lucy. She's kind of Asian-esque, because she's been in movies that take place in Asia.
Both movies...
But that shows a big problem. Both of times she was a gaijin, for one thing. And for two, she literally never spoke a single word of Japanese or Korean in either one. And for three, there's no reason to think that she soaked in, like, any of the culture or understanding or anything like that, because this movie illustrated that she clearly didn't. I would never presume to play a character of another ethnicity. We need the diversity in Hollywood, you guys. But it's just so hard for little old me to find a character who is a female badass. I had to take it.
So this movie could have been shot for $40 million. Granted, you would lose
That's how much Lucy was made for, so
yeah,
yes.
So granted, you would have lost a lot of its production design value. But this, in the grand scheme of things, is not a well-known property. So yes, Toonami did have Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. Yes, a lot of people...
It wasn't even Toonami, it was Cartoon Network.
It wasn't... I thought it was on Toonami on Cartoon Network.
No, it was on Adult Swim. I saw it on Adult Swim next to Cowboy Bebop.
Just goes to show you my age, because, like, Toonami and Adult Swim,
But that also shows how long it was on for.
Yeah.
Okay, part of the reason why I tend to... Maybe this is wrong. I'm admitting my bias, but part of the reason why I always tend to think, like, everybody knows Ghost in the Shell is... My dad knows nothing about anime. He calls it Japanimation. He knows Ghost in the Shell. He knows the original 1995 movie.
Well,
he's seen it. He knows what that shit is.
Yeah, when the creators of The Matrix came in to pitch their movie, they used shots and video from Ghost in the Shell, and they said, "Hey, we're trying to make a movie like this."
And clearly it worked.
Yeah, it worked. And a lot of shots in the original Matrix movie are directly inspired by, they didn't rip from, but are inspired by the Ghost in the Shell film. Here's the thing. They made a different movie.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Like, this movie could have been a different movie, but, like, and I get that, like, no, some people are trying to argue that, like, oh, this is a new interpretation. This is so derivative. This is so derivative of the original anime and, like, elements of the other stuff that, like, it doesn't make its own unique shell.
No, there's literally nothing in this movie I haven't seen in better movies from 25 years ago. There is no thematic element. Maybe, like, the whole female control thing, but, like, that was...
Watch Ex Machina.
Well, yeah, it's definitely better in Ex Machina. I'm just
Watch
saying
Blade
that, like,
Runner.
I get it,
Watch RoboCop. Maybe not with the female identity stuff.
I don't think so.
But I'm saying about, like, influence and all that kind of stuff.
And here's the other thing that I thought was, like, really bizarre about the Ghost of the Shell movie. For a series that's so rooted in this idea of fighting terrorism, which was still the plotline for this movie, how they just completely failed to incorporate literally any instance of terrorism from any part of the world from the past 25 years.
Yeah, like, what was the terrorism in the movie? Like, do you recall?
There were some bits of dialogue where they were like, oh, we fight terrorism, and Kuze is a terrorist.
So an exposition.
Yeah, an exposition. There was no, like, actual terrorism happening in the movie. No. There was no actual like, I wouldn't be surprised if people are listening to this who only saw the movie and were like, what the fuck are you guys talking about terrorism? Because, yeah, it was, like, such a non-thing in the movie. But it's such a thing in our current political climate.
Yeah, you could have made the movie more about that shit.
Especially in an American climate, too.
Yeah, like, you could have made the movie more about terrorism because, let's face it, like, that's what's going on right now. Make the movie current. Make the movie relevant. Because clearly, they just wanted to adapt something that was almost 20 years old and not really add anything new to it.
Well, and also, it does feel kind of like this Ghostbusters thing of, dude, do you even like the property?
The director said he was a fan.
Okay. I'm not saying, like, do you hate it the way Paul Feig does? I'm just saying, like, do you even like it that much? Like, do you have any particular desire to make a Ghost of the Shell movie, or were you handed a deal to make a Ghost of the Shell movie and you said, okay, this is just based off of my feelings watching the movie, but watching the movie, my feelings were, this was nobody's love baby.
And as far as the whitewashing goes, yes, it is whitewashing, and they had every single opportunity given to them, given the casting, given the context, to address it and make it interesting.
And not be bigoted as fuck.
Or do something different.
Mm-hmm. And for all the people who are just like, no, but it's not that big a deal, here's the thing. First of all, Ghost in the Shell does not exist in a vacuum. It's not as if we don't have a long, prolific history of doing this shit. But there's a quote that I think puts it the most succinctly that I can think of from Anji Han. The reason it's frustrating to see is that it's hard enough for an actor of color to snag a meaty role without getting shut out of stories that borrow from their culture and revolve around people of their heritage. If Japanese actors and Japanese American actors can barely get their foot in the door in a movie like this and are reduced to these, like, tertiary background characters that are demeaning stereotypes, what the fuck are they supposed to be able to do with their lives? Like, what are they supposed to be able to do with their
obviously
careers?
Not pursue acting.
Well, clearly, that's just a non-option. We're gonna plug in a bunch of articles because I could sit here all day and quote all of these amazing things that people have written, but we would be here literally all day. But, again, for people who are like, well, Japanese people don't care. First of all, that's 2 videos directed by the same guy that interview a grand total of 7 people. It doesn't say a whole lot about... Because if you can possibly believe this, not all people in Japan think the exact same thing.
I know
almost
you look
like they're like a group of individuals.
I know there are some people who think they all look alike, but they don't all think alike.
There was actually a really great...
And no, they don't all look alike, by the way.
There was a really great Kotaku article from when this whole Scarlett Johansson thing first came out last year that we'll link, that was a forum post. And you can see a good mixture of responses. Some people were like, it's completely fine. Some people were like, Scarlett Johansson's a good choice. Some people were like, well, I don't care about the casting because I'm not going to go fucking see it. Some people were like, Japanese people don't care about this casting and that's depressing. Some people were like, this looks terrible. Fuck this. Why can't they hire a Japanese actress? Why can't they hire Rinko Kikuchi? Why can't they hire Ko Shibata? Also, somebody said specifically, Scarlett Johansson, wasn't she in that movie that was making fun of Japanese people? So yeah, just like in America, there are lots of people who fall on all different sides because the world is made up of individuals who have different ways of thinking. But if you also think like, oh, well, Japanese people say it's okay, therefore there's literally no problem, we're going to link to some articles, specifically one by Emily Yoshida, who is a Japanese-American writer who wrote a really brilliant article not only about Motoko Kusanagi, what is her ethnicity, and how the casting plays into this, but also about the portrayal of ethnicity in anime in general. It was really super interesting. And then there's also an interview I want to include that's really, really, really good that I highly recommend that everybody check out. It's an interview with Keiko Agena, who's one of my favorite actresses. I really wish she was doing more stuff. Kato Kiriyama, Ayo Shihara, and Akatsuka, they all had a interview together about Ghost in the Shell, partially about the casting and then just partially about the movie in general. These are all these are all Japanese American women, so it's still a fairly niche thing, but it's also something that I don't see people online talking about at all, which is concerning to me.
Well, I think that many of the people, which I will assume most of them are not Asian, are arguing that it looks fine to me, so therefore I don't care. And to that point, I can understand that there is outrage culture that exists, and when people use certain phrases, their mind shuts off. They just go, social justice warriors, my mind's shut off. This is bullshit. I just want to enjoy something and not have to think about something. Unfortunately, that's not how entertainment works on an intellectual level. Yes, you might be able to enjoy something on a surface level.
Although I don't know how many people were actually enjoying Ghost in the Shell on a surface level.
Yeah, I kind of just wanted a dumb action movie at the very least, and it didn't give me that. I mean, the shots weren't even framed all that interesting. There were no great action scenes that, it just, even on some of its most basic levels that don't even, incorporate some of the more egregious problems that we've addressed.
Scarlett Johansson didn't look like she was trying to be masculine like Kusanagi was. She just looked like she was trying not to take a poo the whole movie. Which made her near nudity not nearly as hot as it could have been.
I mean, I will make this one argument, and I'll see what you have to say about this, but I'm curious, if the movie was more faithfully visually, do you think it would have made more money? If they decided to have nudity?
Of course. So many people went literally just to see Scarlett Johansson's barely covered boobies. People would have definitely gone to see her bare boobies.
Oh, that movie would have made so much money if she had shown her bare boobies, but she's Scarlett Johansson. She hasn't showed her boobies yet, except for, I think, that leak that came out, the fucking fappening or whatever.
Oh, God. No.
Oh, my God. Anyways, yeah.
There's enough porn on the internet. Don't be leaking people's private nudes. Jesus.
Yeah, if they don't want to be naked, don't leak their shit.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you could have picked an actress that was okay with being nude. I mean, you could have picked Eva Green. Eva Green doesn't mind being naked in anything.
True.
So, like, you could have had Eva Green be the major. I mean, it'd still be whitewashing, but, like...
Well, that's also part of the reason why this defense of the whitewashing is also particularly boggling to me, is I've seen so many people say, like, this movie sucked, but it wasn't because of whitewashing. And it's like, why are you defending the cast? Like, if it's a shitty movie anyway, why are you saying that there's still not a... Like, if you don't even... If you're blinded by the fact you like it, I kind of can't blame you. If you're like, I really like this thing and I don't want to see that there's a problem, I can understand that more than just, I don't even like it, but it makes total sense to have a character named Motoko Kusanagi be white, and you guys are assholes if you want to change it, and that's bullshit. We need to have white characters in this Japanese manga adaptation.
No, it's just a rejection of outrage culture.
I know it is, but why about this?
Yeah, this movie doesn't really have
Deserve
anything
that.
to defend.
Yeah.
Other than its production design.
But then, like I said, besides Scarlett Johansson, there's the entire rest of the cast.
Yeah, I mean, like, and while this is accurate to the anime, like, half the Japanese actors their facial makeup is behind either a visor or, you know, something else. Like, you don't see a lot of Japanese people, like, actually as Japanese people. They're enhanced in some way in their face, but, like, you don't have that a lot with the white people except for Bato.
Well, Miss Haraway, like, it is there, it just looks normal.
Right.
But, I mean, that doesn't bother me as much, but,
the
like...
main guy who had something on his face, like, it was like a eye enhancement or something like that. Like,
yeah, but also,
cheeks.
there's only 3 Japanese characters. At all. Like, who are actually characters. When I said that there were, like, 6 Japanese people who have dialogue, period, out of those 6, there's only 3 who are actual characters. There's Aramake, there's Mama Kusanagi, and there's Togusa. And that is literally all the Japanese characters in the entire movie.
What about the guy at the bar?
That's not a character. That's the guy at the bar.
Gotcha. Or like the guy that kind of tried to rape her, which... What is it with Scarlett Johansson getting, like, being attempted to be raped by Asian men in movies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess that's just a thing.
The one thing that I'm actually surprised by is that they didn't have a tiny Asian male penis joke. You managed to fit in the, like, Japanese drunkard stereotype. You couldn't fit in a tiny dick joke somewhere? Because this movie is almost that bad. Or
made L and R joke some point.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that is a stereotype that is true. Being somebody who's actually been to Japan.
Yes.
Because the Japanese don't have the L in their vocabulary. So...
The Korean language doesn't either.
Yeah, so when you hear that mispronunciation, it's because it's not in their language. So
well, also Americans sound kind of dumb when we say like an L or an R in Japanese words, you know. It goes both ways.
This was really egregious, and hopefully they learn their lesson, because at the very least, it's not doing well box office-wise to do this. This is a dumb box office decision.
Yeah, just based on the business practice.
So, my recommendation is either don't adapt these properties or get a lower budget and take a risk. Because I get it. You're not going to want to take a huge, big budget risk on this. But why couldn't it have been a TV show made with an Asian cast, like Into the Badlands or something like that, with a much smaller budget, been able to expand its story and kind of be something of its own? I guarantee you
they could have Legion that shit.
What do you mean?
Like the show Legion.
Oh, as being like different from the...
Yeah,
okay.
like in canon, but also kind of different, where it's like similar vibes, but you have the creative freedom to do your own thing. And also be a TV show.
Yeah, been like what Ghost in the Shell has been in every single adaptation to this point.
True, yeah, pretty much every version is a different canon of the same character in the same situation. So you could have just done that again in an American TV show.
And if you have to change the races, don't do it this way. Like, just don't have it take place in Japan. Have it take place in the United States.
Don't perpetuate demeaning stereotypes.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, make it your own. If you have to, do it the Infernal Affairs style. You know, with The Departed. Change just about everything except the skeleton of the story and make it your own. People will like you more for doing it that way because guess what? This is a new piece of entertainment. This isn't the same thing recopied. This is something new.
It's embarrassing. I mean, I'm not personally embarrassed or anything. I didn't make the damn thing, but it is pretty fucking cringeworthy to see that we're still making this sort of content. Both in terms of quality and in terms of just tone deafness. And it's fucking embarrassing that we're still being held to the standards of John Wayne playing Genghis Khan.
Yeah, and this isn't theater. Because I can understand these arguments being made on the stage.
Oh, like, yeah, I thought this whole thing where people were complaining that Hermione Granger was going to be played by a black woman in the stage play was really dumb, because it's like, if it was the movies, yes, that would definitely be really stupid. But it's a play, it's a separate canon, it's fine.
Yeah, stage plays have been doing that for a long time, and if I can stretch my mind, I could see some people trying to make the argument of this for film, but film tries to recreate reality more than plays do. Like, when you go into a play, you're not accepting the play as reality.
Well, also, if you want to talk about just, like, getting the look of Motoko Kusanagi, right? Compare the images of the stage play for Arise to literally any stills from the American Ghost in the Shell movie. And tell me which one looks more like Motoko Kusanagi.
Yeah, also that hairstyle was really bad.
Yeah, that wig was really fucking terrible. The crooked bangs, oh god. And you know part of it was that they couldn't get the right texture for her hair because she clearly doesn't have Japanese hair.
And that was one thing that I did actually like about the Margot Robbie pitch, was because at least it was different. At least it was trying to not recreate what we had already seen before. You know, if you're going to change that much shit about it, change the look of the characters. Mm-hmm. It would have helped, especially with this film. All right, so if you want to make comments, we'd love to hear them. Let us know what you think about our arguments. Let us know what you think about our videos. We love getting responses. Sometimes they're not always positive, but they're always helpful.
They are always helpful, and I know a lot of people look at the title or listen to the first 5 minutes and don't get the whole argument. That's okay. We get it. But at the same time, it's also just like, you're not retorting an argument you didn't listen to.
And if you would like us to do more of this more frequently, you can support us on Patreon for $1 a month. That might be a lot. If you don't want to do that, that's okay. We'll leave a link here. And if you're not able to support us through Patreon, that's cool. Maybe for one of our videos, keep the ad running. YouTube has gotten really crazy about their ad revenue stuff, and I don't make money on these videos. I do them because I like them. It's really not for profit. But I'm not going to lie, maybe having a couple extra dollars to go see a movie, especially one that I'm not looking forward to seeing, would be helpful.
Are you talking about It?
Yeah. If you want to donate money to encourage me to watch It, I own the original It, and I can compare it to that. I can even read the novel. So if you want
What
to...
a novel idea.
All right, thanks for listening.